They say betrayal hurts most when it comes from the person who once swore to protect you. But when the email came, I didn't cry. I was standing backstage at the Green Futures Design Summit in Austin, Texas. My name had just been announced, applause filling the ballroom, when I glanced down at my tablet, intending to silence notifications before walking on stage. And there it was. Subject: Vanessa, let's not drag this out. Sent from Nathan Reed's personal account. I tapped it open, thinking it was maybe something about the mortgage or a tax document. Instead, I read, Vanessa, this isn't easy, but it's necessary. I've filed for divorce. By the time you read this, I'll be out of the house. I've already moved my things. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I've cleared our joint account. I'm entitled to half, and I needed to secure my next steps. Ivy and I are relocating to New York. I hope we can handle this like adults. I read it twice. Then once more, slower. The only sign that my husband of 12 years had detonated our marriage via email was the small, controlled breath I took before swiping it closed. I stepped out into the spotlight, smiled at the crowd, and gave a 20-minute presentation about sustainability and long-term vision without my voice cracking once. The applause was warm, genuine. People came up afterward asking to connect, to collaborate, to learn more about my firm's work with low-impact luxury materials. What none of them knew was that my husband had just left me, or that he had taken my trust and our shared finances without even offering me a conversation. What Nathan didn't know, however, was this. I'd been preparing for this moment for months. I flew back to Seattle the next evening, not as a broken woman, but as a woman who had long stopped trusting the man sleeping next to her. Nathan thought he'd caught me off guard. He thought I'd be devastated. He thought I'd beg. He was wrong on all 3 counts. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen counter, alone. Quiet, sipping coffee from the mug Nathan bought me on our 5th anniversary. It read, "Still my favorite co-pilot." What a joke! I stared at the empty side of the breakfast table. The seat he used to fill. The seat I hadn't missed in weeks. Because the truth? I'd felt him leaving long before he actually left. It started with the late meetings that always ended past midnight. The phone that suddenly needed a passcode. The gym sessions 5 times a week for a man who once claimed yoga was too intense. And then, the smallest detail that cracked everything open. A receipt for a 5-star hotel in downtown Seattle on a night he told me he was in Portland. That was 3 months ago. That same week, I quietly scheduled a lunch with Anita, my lawyer friend who specialized in high-asset divorces, just to talk through hypotheticals, I'd said, stirring my iced tea too calmly. By then, I already had my own account at a different bank. I'd moved all consulting revenue and bonuses out of our joint account, leaving just enough to appear normal. Nathan was smart, book-smart, strategic. But he underestimated emotional intelligence. He didn't notice the way I'd stopped asking questions. The way I smiled and nodded when he floated vague ideas about starting over somewhere warmer. He was preparing to leave me. I was preparing to be fine when he did. He didn't know that the house, the one he assumed we shared, was never legally his. I'd inherited it from my Aunt Corinne. And the title had remained in my maiden name, per her very sharp attorney's recommendation. He didn't know that my company, Viridian Interiors, was fully incorporated under a separate legal structure, no matter how many dinners he suggested we simplify things and co-sign everything to show unity. He didn't know about the folder I kept encrypted, cloud-backed, and dated. Screenshots, emails, expense reports, recordings. 2. A few careless conversations caught on the home intercom system when he thought I wasn't home. Nathan had made one grave mistake. He thought I was the same woman he married 12 years ago. But I had evolved. Quietly, patiently, relentlessly. So when that email came in Austin, it didn't shatter me. It activated me. 2 days after I returned to Seattle, I stood in my guest bathroom, staring at a deep red lipstick print on the rim of a wine glass. I don't wear red. And I never drink in that bathroom. The apartment felt tampered with. I could sense it in the air, like someone had been playing house in my absence. I opened the linen closet. One of the towels, monogrammed with a V, was crumpled and damp. It was subtle, but it was there. The arrogance of a man who thought he wouldn't get caught. Back in my home office, I clicked open Instagram. I hadn't blocked Ivy, the young, wide-eyed social media coordinator from Nathan's firm. And there she was, in all her filtered glory, lounging barefoot in a velvet armchair, cocktail in hand. The geotag said, "The Grand Norwood Residences, Seattle's exclusive waterfront suites." I froze. That was one of my firm's partner hotels. I had brokered the sustainability renovation deal myself, which meant I had access to the guest records. 5 minutes later, I was on the phone with the hotel's director of guest services. "Yes, Ms. Reed, you're still the listed VIP contact for your firm's partnership." "Yes, Mr. Nathan Reed checked in under the corporate rate." "Yes, there was a second guest listed. Ivy Monroe." I asked for copies of the invoices and room service records, and while I waited, I opened my inbox to find a fresh email from Nathan. Subject: "Let's be adults about the house and the business." "Vanessa, I know this is emotional for you, and I get it. I just want to move forward. I propose we sell the house and split the profits evenly. Also, I'm open to negotiating a fair value for my half of your firm. You've built something special, and I always supported it. Even if I didn't always understand it, let's avoid lawyers if we can." "Nathan." I laughed. Actually laughed. "My half of your firm. My firm." The one he called your little design side project for years. The one I stayed up building while he snored on the couch, TV remote in hand. He thought he could just name it and claim it. Not today. I forwarded the hotel invoice, Ivy's social post, and his new email to Anita. She replied within the hour. "Perfect timing. I'll file the emergency injunction tonight. We'll freeze the joint account and add this to our evidence bundle. Also, do not respond to him anymore. Let's go full legal." The wheels were in motion now. Nathan thought his email was the start of my undoing, but it was just the final push I needed to execute the plan I'd already set in motion. When I landed back in Seattle, the air smelled like rain and jasmine, familiar, grounding. But as the car pulled up to our house, something felt off. There were faint tracks in the gravel Nathan never used. The porch light was out. I always kept it on when I was away. And the hallway rug was crooked. Nathan never noticed those things, but I always did. I stepped inside to silence. A few framed photos were missing from the shelf. His clothes were gone from the closet. A drawer in the kitchen hung open. No note. No explanation. Just absence. I walked through the house slowly, noticing the gaps where his presence used to be and the places that had been tampered with. A glass in the sink. A towel that wasn't mine. Lipstick smudges on a wine glass I hadn't used. He didn't even bother to clean up after her. But I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, connected to my encrypted drive, and began updating the evidence file labeled N. Reed. Contingency. Weeks earlier, when I'd found a $7,800 charge labeled Private Concierge Services on our shared credit card, I didn't confront him. I copied it. I flagged it. I started building. That same week, I met with Anita for real. We mapped out all possible outcomes. I quietly pulled financial statements from both our banks, made sure my firm's account was firewalled with legal protections, and retitled one of my design licenses under a holding company. Nathan had always scoffed at how seriously I took contracts, how I read every clause, every amendment. Now that paranoia had become preparation. Then came the final trigger. One night before my Austin trip, I'd come home late from a client dinner. Nathan didn't hear me walk into the house. He was in the den, pacing, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low but sharp. "No, I told you, after she leaves for Austin, it's clean. I'll be out, and the rest is hers to figure out. She won't fight me, she never does." I recorded that, too. Just 30 seconds. Enough. Back then, I'd quietly climbed the stairs, changed into pajamas, and kissed him on the cheek like nothing happened. Let him think I was still sleeping. Now, back home, I forwarded the recording to Anita. Her reply was almost instant. He just gave us intent, motive, and timeline. "We're filing this week." Nathan thought he'd executed the perfect ambush. He had no idea he was the one walking straight into mine. The day after I returned, I woke early and walked the house room by room, not to search, but to confirm. The guest bathroom still held a faint scent of perfume I didn't wear. The hallway mirror had fingerprints too small to be Nathan's. And in the living room trash bin, which he never used, I found a hotel cocktail napkin with a lipstick kiss in a shade of red I had never owned. She'd been here. I should have been furious. But all I felt was an eerie sort of clarity, like watching the final piece of a puzzle fall into place. I opened my laptop and pulled up Instagram. Ivy Monroe's page was still public. She hadn't changed a thing. Her most recent story showed a glass of champagne beside a hotel pool. The caption, "When he says you're worth it." The geotag? The Whitmore Residences, Seattle's waterfront luxury suites. I blinked. That hotel was one of my firm's most recent renovation projects. I'd handled their eco-redesign personally, which meant I still had VIP-level back-end access to their guest registry. A few phone calls later, and I had it in hand. A digital invoice confirming Nathan had checked in under my firm's corporate rate for a full week, with Ivy Monroe listed as his guest. Room service for 2. Private spa treatments. A $1 per 100 bottle of Bordeaux charged to the room. He wasn't even trying to hide anymore. And yet, he still underestimated me. Because as I reviewed the hotel statement, another email came in. From Nathan. Subject: "Let's handle this like adults. Vanessa, I know you're hurt, but this doesn't have to be ugly. We can sell the house and split it, and I'm willing to negotiate a fair deal for your business. After all, I always supported you, even if I didn't always understand what you did. Let's avoid unnecessary legal drama." Nathan. My hands didn't shake, but I did exhale a small, disbelieving laugh. A fair deal for your business? The same business he once mocked as your little eco side hustle. The same one he called cute when I landed a feature in Pacific Northwest Interiors. He thought he could claim a share of it, just because he knew it existed. I forwarded the hotel records, Ivy's story screenshots, and his new email to Anita, writing only. "It's time." Her reply was immediate. "Filing an emergency injunction now. We'll freeze the joint account tonight. Do not respond to him. We go full legal from here." I stared out the window, watching the Seattle rain streak across the glass in slow, steady lines. Nathan thought I was too soft to fight. He was about to learn how sharp I'd become. That night, as the city settled into drizzle and silence, I watched the joint account drain to zero, not from Nathan's doing, but from the emergency freeze Anita filed with the court. I pictured him trying to buy dinner, maybe a little smug from his self-perceived clean break, only to find his card declined. And that was just the beginning. The next morning, I blocked his number. There was nothing more to say, and even less to hear. But his emails kept coming, like echoes from someone who hadn't realized the conversation was over. Subject: "Seriously? You froze everything? You're being vindictive now. I left things in a decent place. I even offered you the house. Don't make this ugly. The house was mine. Legally. Fully. And offering me what already belonged to me wasn't generosity, it was arrogance. Anita's team was already in motion. The gallery was sealed off financially, secure under an LLC Nathan had no stake in, no matter how many times he liked to refer to it as our backup plan. At noon, I got a text from my office manager. Vanessa, a man came by asking about shared property and trying to access files. We didn't let him in. He got aggressive, though. He'd sent someone to my gallery? I called the building manager and had our security footage reviewed. Sure enough, Nathan had shown up, dressed in business casual desperation, and tried to bluff his way into the server room. When they refused, he stormed off, muttering something about getting what he's owed. It was almost sad. Almost. That evening, Ivy posted a story that showed her at a downtown bar with friends, captioned, "When they say they're divorced, but still lie like they're married." Ouch! Anita called shortly after, her voice calm but clipped. His firm's HR department received an anonymous tip about his relationship with Ivy. They're launching an internal review. Also, we now have 3 separate violations of the temporary financial order. He attempted to move mutual funds without consent. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't revenge. This was simply justice catching up to a man who thought he was above it. Anita continued, "Monday's hearing is on the docket. We'll lead with the evidence trail, emails, hotel receipts, and unauthorized financial moves. I've also added screenshots of Ivy's posts. They prove timeline overlap and casual intent." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Let him keep digging," I said. "I want the judge to see the hole he built for himself." And dig he did. Later that night, another email came through. "You think you're so clever, but I've made copies of your business documents. I know what's in those contracts. Half of that company is mine, whether you like it or not." I smiled and added it to the evidence folder. Let him try. Let him learn. Let him watch as the woman he thought would crumble rose taller than ever. The courtroom was colder than I expected, all polished wood and sterile light. But I wasn't nervous. I had nothing to hide. Nathan, on the other hand, looked like a man slowly realizing his parachute had never been packed. He arrived 5 minutes late, wearing a fitted blazer at least a decade too young for him and designer loafers with no socks, the uniform of someone desperate to appear unfazed. But the circles under his eyes and the way he clutched a worn leather folder told a different story. Ivy was nowhere in sight. Anita stood beside me, serene and steady. She held a thick binder, tabbed, color-coded, weaponized. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and zero tolerance for nonsense, called us to order. "Mrs. Reed," she began, "please summarize the basis for the emergency petition." Anita stepped forward. "My client presents documented evidence of financial misconduct, asset concealment, unauthorized use of shared funds, and workplace impropriety relevant to the divorce proceeding," she said, each word clipped like a metronome. "We have emails, transaction records, audio files, and social media posts verifying Mr. Reed's intent to abandon the marriage while misappropriating joint resources." Nathan's lawyer, a man who looked more panicked than prepared, tried to interrupt. "Your Honor, we believe these actions were emotional reactions, not premeditated. My client was attempting to make a clean exit." The judge raised an eyebrow. "By draining joint accounts and charging luxury hotel stays with a subordinate on a business credit card?" Nathan shifted in his seat. Anita pressed forward. "Furthermore, my client's business, Viridian Interiors, is a legally distinct entity formed before the marriage, with all income and ownership documents held solely in her name. Mr. Reed's attempts to claim shared ownership are baseless and unsupported by any documentation." I could feel the shift in the room. From sympathy for a husband left behind to recognition that this man had engineered his own downfall. The judge turned to Nathan directly. "Mr. Reed, do you deny using shared funds to finance travel and accommodations with Ms. Ivy Monroe?" He cleared his throat. I don't deny it, no. But I was only taking what I thought I was entitled to. Entitled how? The judge asked, unimpressed. Nathan hesitated. We were married for 12 years. That business grew while I supported her emotionally. Anita didn't even look up from her folder. With all due respect, Your Honor, she said, flipping to a tab labeled Statements. Viridian LLC, we have written evidence where Mr. Reed repeatedly mocked, belittled, and attempted to undermine my client's business, calling it a hobby, a distraction, and, quote, her little green project. The courtroom was silent, except for the faint click of Anita turning the next page. The judge leaned back. In light of the evidence presented, she said at last, the court finds sufficient cause to freeze all joint marital assets pending final dissolution. Mr. Reed is ordered to return any and all funds withdrawn from joint accounts within 48 hours. Furthermore, he is barred from accessing, contacting, or interfering with Mrs. Reed's business entity or professional operations. Nathan's mouth opened, then closed again. He looked around the courtroom as if someone might intervene on his behalf. No one did. Where am I supposed to get that money back? He blurted. The judge didn't even blink. That's not my concern. Perhaps you should have considered that before your so-called clean exit. As we stepped out of the courtroom, I heard Nathan's lawyer mutter something under his breath. Anita glanced at me. He thought this would be easy, she said. I nodded. He thought I was easy. But now he knew better. By the end of that week, Nathan's world began crumbling, not in some dramatic public scandal, but slowly, like a structure weakened by its own rotten foundation. First came the email from his firm's HR department. Apparently someone, most likely Ivy herself, had submitted a formal complaint. Combined with the anonymous tip Anita had sent and Ivy's own social media posts, there was now a full-blown investigation into misconduct and breach of company policy. Nathan was placed on indefinite leave. His name removed from the website by the end of the day. Then came the unraveling of his carefully cultivated social circle. I heard through mutual friends that Ivy had moved back in with her sister, her New York dreams permanently on hold. She deleted all traces of Nathan from her feed. Her latest post read, I learned the hard way. Someone who lies to their wife will lie to you too. The next day, I received an unexpected delivery at my office, a bouquet of white orchids, my favorite, with no note. I knew exactly who sent them. I dropped them into the trash without a second thought. Meanwhile, Viridian Interiors was thriving. The podcast I had appeared on, Built to Survive, went viral after I casually mentioned the importance of separating personal and business finances. Requests for interviews started rolling in. My inbox was flooded with collaboration offers from architects, investors, and young designers who called me inspirational. And honestly, that word made me pause. Because I hadn't set out to inspire anyone. I had set out to survive. But survival, done right, becomes transformation. I opened a second office in Portland, hired 3 new staff, launched an eco-friendly product line that sold out in under a week. The gallery Nathan once dismissed as your backup plan had become a national brand, with my name on every door, every contract, every headline. As for him, he was living in a rented guest house behind his college friend's home, according to Amanda, his sister, who stopped by the gallery one rainy Thursday afternoon. She lingered in the lobby, awkwardly sipping her coffee, before saying, We didn't know. We truly didn't. He told us you were cold, controlling, that you never supported his dreams. But then we saw the texts. The way he bragged about draining the account. About Ivy. It wasn't you. It was him. It is him. I simply nodded. People show who they are eventually. All I did was stop covering for it. Before she left, she bought 3 pieces of art for her new apartment. Paid in full. No discounts. No apologies. Nathan continued sending messages, though less frequently now. They ranged from bitter, "You destroyed me," to desperate, Can't we talk? Just one dinner? Just us. To manipulative. I made your success possible. I supported you when no one else did. You owe me something. Each time, I forwarded the email to Anita without responding. And each time, I felt lighter. Ivy's friends, I heard, had started calling Nathan the internship disaster. He'd become a cautionary tale. I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. I was too busy reviewing designs for my next expansion, a flagship showroom in San Francisco. Because the truth was simple. While Nathan had tried to reinvent his life through betrayal and shortcuts, I had rebuilt mine through planning, patience, and purpose. And there's no shortcut for that. Exactly 1 year to the day since Nathan sent that cold email, I stood beneath the skylights of my third office, a minimalist, light-filled space in San Francisco's design district. My team buzzed around me, preparing for our soft opening event. I stood back, watching a young intern, bright-eyed and nervous, adjust product displays. She reminded me of someone. Maybe who I used to be. Or maybe who Ivy could have been in a different life. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. It was a message from Anita. FYI, Nathan filed another petition. The judge dismissed it in under 5 minutes. Also, he's been ordered to pay your legal fees. Thought that would make your morning. I smiled. Nathan hadn't learned. Still clinging to the fantasy that he could rewrite the ending or steal part of my beginning. But this wasn't his story anymore. It never really was. Months ago, I'd received an invitation to speak at a National Women's Business Summit. The topic wasn't divorce. It wasn't even betrayal. It was this: protecting what you build. Financial boundaries for female founders. When I stepped on stage, the room fell quiet. I'm not here today to talk about heartbreak, I began. I'm here to talk about protection, not just legal, but emotional, about understanding that sometimes the people closest to you don't want to steal your heart. They want to steal your power. There were tears in the audience. Not because my story was unique, but because it wasn't. After my talk, a young woman approached me. She was maybe 28, in a blazer too big for her frame, clutching a notebook like it was armor. My husband says I'm being paranoid, she whispered. Because I want to keep my business account separate. Because I won't put him on my lease yet. I looked her in the eyes. My ex-husband said the same thing, right up until he drained our account and tried to take half my company. She nodded slowly. I could see her breath catch, like she'd been holding it for months. Trust your instincts, I told her. Protection isn't paranoia. It's wisdom. And it might be the only thing standing between you and a really expensive lesson. That night, back in Seattle, I walked through my original gallery alone. It was the 5-year anniversary of its opening. The same framed email still hung behind my desk, Nathan's words preserved like an artifact. I've cleared our joint account. Ivy and I are starting over. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Beneath it, I'd added a small plaque that read, "This message ended a marriage." It started everything else. As I stood there, a familiar figure entered quietly. It was Nathan's mother. She looked older than I remembered, not just in age, but in expression. She held a small gift bag from our store, her hands neatly folded. I didn't come to apologize, she said. I came to thank you. You taught this family what enabling looks like. And what strength really is. Nathan's still, well, Nathan. But we're not shielding him anymore. You broke the cycle. I nodded once, then showed her out. There was nothing else to say. As the door closed, my assistant manager, a sharp, warm woman named Melissa, popped her head in. You ready to review the new product line? I smiled. Not just because I was ready, but because I had built this. Brick by brick. Scar by scar. Win by quiet, determined win. I caught my reflection in the gallery window as we walked past. Not a woman scorned. Not a woman broken. A woman stronger than ever. Smarter than before. Clearer than she'd ever been. Nathan had sent that email thinking he'd ended something, but all he really did was give me permission to begin.